Welcome back to Lost Legacies. I'm Matt.
And I'm Sam. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a podcast, so it's audio only, so no one saw you take off your sunglasses.
No, I put on my sunglasses.
I couldn't tell because they're not really there. It's the imagination.
I went like this.
That means I put them on. Oh, that's a good point.
You're a theater major. What do you mean you can't see in mime?
I'm a podcaster, Sam.
Oh, gosh.
Those who can't act, podcast.
Just a sea. There's just a sea of podcasters who literally just fell over right now. There's this on my phone. Yeah, I'm getting massive texts. There's massive emergencies. All the podcasters that just fell over, hit themselves. Apple, their stock is plummeting now because everything's breaking. Way to go.
Yep. I don't know if y'all heard that bird or not.
I did.
Okay. Audience, just so you know, we're having some work done at the house for the past little while. So the last couple episodes, including this one, my room has been pretty much empty. That may be why I sound a little more echoey lately. Also, we can hear the outside birds a lot more because I even had to take the curtains down and everything. Mm-hmm. So it's a work in progress. But yeah. So Sam, you told me there's a bunch of trailers that dropped today. I didn't see any of them.
Well, then what are we going to talk about?
They're all scary movies. Did you like them?
They're not all scary movies. There was that Strange Worlds one that you told me about.
I saw the Strange Worlds trailer. It looked good. It was just a teaser. It looked cute.
Yeah.
I like the style, kind of like the old pulpy sci-fi vibe. Mm-hmm. I like it.
I did like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Interesting. I'm not a huge fan of the character designs, but mostly just with the main guy who looks like the protagonist. I don't know. There's just something looked off about him, but
yeah, they're kind of weird.
Yeah, but everything else looked great.
Mm-hmm. So, what trailers did you watch?
Well, they're all teasers, but they just dropped the teaser for the Wednesday show, the Wednesday Addams show.
I saw that. I didn't know it was live action.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
So who's going to play the rest of them?
I don't know.
I feel like that would have been bigger casting news, right? Unless the family's not going to show up.
I don't think the family's going to show up because this is supposed to be Wednesday, at school, college, boarding school. I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Seems interesting.
Well, good for her. Jenna Ortega, man. She's becoming the new face of scream queen. Yeah. She's like the new scream queen, man. She's in so many horror movies, and she's 18, so she's got a whole career ahead of her,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. What else?
I'm excited. Mike Flanagan released a teaser for his new Netflix series, The Midnight Club.
Ooh.
Which I think I want to say that was an old.
It's a book, right?
Yeah, it's a book. Christopher Pike, he did a lot of the teen horror, and I want to say the 80s. And I think it's kind of based off that, but it's kind of I think they also had a Nickelodeon show. That was that, or if it's not that, I don't know. But a lot of people were saying that it's kind of like their Are You Afraid of the Dark? So it's these kids that are part of this little society who tell scary stories to each other. That looks really cool.
And Are You Afraid of the Dark? That was a kids show.
Mm-hmm.
And then they made the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it's they made the movie for the original kids who watched it.
Yeah. So
it's so they're a lot older now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It looks really cool. I don't know. A lot of the teasers today were just vibes. No, not footage from the shows themselves, but just vibes, and I'm here for it because I think that's a good way to sell it. So yeah, I'm intrigued. It feels creepy. It's got a really cool, diverse cast of teenagers, young people. It looks great. I'm excited for that. But what I'm mostly excited for, my man, my boy, Guillermo del Toro, and his cabinet,
GDT.
GDT, and his new series, The Cabinet of Curiosities.
Mm.
That looks great. It looks like one of those shows kind of in the same vein. Are You Afraid of the Dark, Twilight Zone, Creep Show, where it's like we're doing anthology stories. Every episode is like a mini, scary story that we're telling.
Mm-hmm.
They got some great people that are coming in on it. And yeah, it looks cool. I'm excited. It's probably going to be spooky,
Oh, for sure.
and I'm interested. I'm intrigued. I'll be there day one.
Nice. Well, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's talk about your graphic novel.
Mm-hmm.
When this episode airs, everyone, on a Monday, if you're listening to it the day it comes out, that means you have a mere hours left.
Mm-hmm.
Because at 2:05 a.m. Central Time, it ends. So as of right now, this project is 84% funded. So we have less than a week. Well, if you're listening to this, we have several hours to get there. So who knows? By the time this episode comes out, it might already be funded. We can only hope and dream.
Yeah, I know. We can only hope and dream. And I know there's a whole thing where it's like the 2 days that are the most important or that get the most funding are the first 48 hours and the last 48 hours.
It's good to know.
Yeah. So it's like, so that's like, okay, like it just got out there and you've done your promo and all that stuff. And now here it is, boom. And like, yeah, so people are seeing it. It's fresh. And then in the last part, it's because of everybody who like signed on to like follow the page or like be notified when it's in like the last hours, like all of those people start getting notified and it's like, oh, okay. Yeah. So it's a little bit of a bump towards the end.
And does Kickstarter like, because I know they always like on their main page, they have links and they show a bunch of projects that are trying to be funded. They'll have them in categories and they'll have like the new stuff that's blowing up. Do they have one for like projects that are running out of time?
I don't think so.
You would think they would, right? It's like, hey, these projects end in 24 hours.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think they do that, but it's usually just like on the main page, whatever page you're looking at, it'll have a notification that says, like so many hours to go. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because I know that it's better to get your funding as soon as possible, because then that puts you on a bunch of different pages and that'll keep like getting
if you get enough,
pushed up, getting
the
notified.
Algorithm.
Exactly. So all of this is good stuff. If you out there listeners are wanting to start your own Kickstarter thing, this is some good advice for y'all. So yeah, and if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up. My socials. I'm on Twitter, on Instagram. Send me a message. I'll help you as best I can.
You know who else needed help today, Sam?
Mm-hmm.
Nikki and Paolo.
Who's that? Who are they? I don't know those people.
God, done. Don't get started. All right. So today we're talking about Lost Season 3, Episode 14, Expose. Who the hell are Nikki and Paolo? This episode, we find out. All right, Sam, thoughts?
This, as my wife said once this episode was over, she said, "Well, that certainly was an episode."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is effectively like CSI Island. Because they
tried to be,
it's oh god, this episode is so weird because it tries to be like a procedural, but none of these people are cops. we don't know anything. They don't know anything about forensics, and like they're just trying to figure out how did these people die? What killed Nikki and Paolo? And it's
Yeah.
like
But
it
at the
was just
same
really
time, the
weird.
flashbacks are telling us the story in order, and it's like it was just really weird.
Yeah, it
Here's the
was really
thing:
weird.
this wasn't the worst episode. However,
No.
however, it was still bad.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it at least in the first half, because they were really going crazy with the way they told the story. First
Okay.
off, let's talk about the flashbacks, because the flashbacks were done differently than they've done before.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that opening, Sam.
Uh
What a waste of Billy D. Williams.
that's what I was gonna say. You're gonna have Billy D. Williams guest star
Mm-hmm.
on this global phenomenon,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a throwaway character. He's
Mm-hmm.
Billy D, you deserve better.
And the
I'm so
opening doesn't even make
sorry.
sense, because it starts off at like, okay, well, one, you start off with Nikki running through the woods, right? Dun, 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 dun,
Hmm.
and then you see the flashback, which she's like a stripper at a strip club. She sees this guy walking up the stage or up the stairs, so she goes up the stairs into the office. And then that's when you start realizing, oh, this isn't real, because you got like the cheesy music going, and it turns out, oh, she has a confrontation. She gets killed by Billy D. Williams, blah, blah, blah. Basically, it's a TV show that they're
Hmm.
filming. I'm like, wait a second. Did they film the whole strip scene?
That's one of my biggest pet peeves in movies or shows where they're like here's the scene, but it's like they're going through so much of the scene, and then right at the moment, like right at the last second, then they're like cut, and then everything changes. All this stuff. Like that's not how that works. That's not like I don't know. It's just like that's not how that works. That's not how the scene progression works.
I
It's
think you
just
need to go into more detail here, because you didn't explain like why it's not working. So in this case, like she literally left the stage,
mm-hmm,
followed the guy up the stairs
mm-hmm,
into an office. I'm like, so the reason it doesn't work is like, wait a minute. So did they have someone filming the strip scene and filming in the office at the same time, or are they
mm-hmm.
two separate sets? It doesn't make sense, because in real life you would just cut,
Yeah.
you know. So the fact that they did both of those back to back just proves that it was a dumb choice. It's like they're trying to use the flashback to trick us
Mm-hmm.
in a not clever way. Kind of like, remember when Negan, then The Walking Dead, whatever season, he finally kills someone, and we don't know who it is.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
So the whole episode is from someone's POV. Not the whole episode, but it keeps cutting back to this person's POV. And then at the end of the episode, the POV like person gets killed, if I remember this correctly. So we don't know who it is until the next season. Next season, we realize, I think the POV character was Daryl, but the
Mm.
person who got killed was someone else. So it's like,
Oh, that's right.
so like they're trying to, if you're going to use a POV or a flashback, it should be enhancing the story. It shouldn't be a tool just to trick the audience.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into more of that later in this show, because we'll get there. We'll get there.
Oh.
Anyway, so in this case, it was just like they tried to use the flashback to trick us, and they did, but it just wasn't really done right. It doesn't make sense in universe, in story.
Mm-hmm.
When we get to the behind the scenes, I'll give you a little extra tidbit about that
Okay.
twist. But yeah, it turns out, Nikki was an actress, and she's sleeping with, I guess he's a producer or something, or director. Like, I don't know, this guy was rich.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it turns out his chef is Paolo, but really they're murderers, because they
Mm-hmm.
poison him and steal his diamonds, and it was just this weird story. Like, I don't know. So the whole flashbacks, what I thought was cool about the flashbacks was that it actually gave us like a time frame
Mhm.
because every time it cut back, it said, I think the first one said like 85 days ago. And
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh wow. And then once they were on the island, it was like 70 or something like that. I think they said they were on the island for 74 days as of
Mhm.
this point. So I thought that was cool. And I really thought it was cool. And I think this was the original intention of this episode was to do this whole like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern thing, you know? In that oh, okay, if you don't know what that is. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Gilden? Yeah.
Guildenstern, yeah.
Rosencrantz and Guildenstern were two secondary characters in Hamlet. And I don't really remember the story. They had to go do this thing, and
So
they
they're Hamlet's old like college friends,
yeah,
but
yeah,
they get brought in at this point after Hamlet's father has been is dead, to sort of like liven his spirits, but he immediately clocks it like, oh, they're here to just like they're essentially being paid to like stop him from doing stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
So but the point is that they're very secondary characters. They kind of just show up and like they're talked about. You know, something is happening, and then they essentially get killed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's what Rosencrantz and Guildenstern is. And then sometime later, long time later, someone made the play Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, and it's the story of Hamlet, but from their perspective. So we actually get to see what they're doing behind the scenes, and you know, and that's kind of, and we've seen that like done before, you know. So like in Hamlet, it, you know, sure they're part of the plot. It doesn't really matter who they were, but in their story, they do because they're the main characters.
Yeah.
We also saw that in Lion King one and a half,
One and a half. Yeah.
one
With
and a half.
Pumbaa.
Yeah, we saw that in what else did that? I feel like there was something else.
I'll tell you what did it.
What did it?
Tag and Binks are dead.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, Tag and Binks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think, you know, they weren't based off any characters in Star Wars, but they put them in Star Wars in a comic book form. So the
Mm-hmm.
only time like they really like interact with the main Star Wars story, like they're covered, like they were dressed as stormtroopers or whatever.
Yeah.
So you could realistically go back and watch the original trilogy and a few of the prequels and say, "Oh, look, that's Tag and Bink."
Yeah.
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 So that's the concept, and I think that's a really cool concept with Lost. It's just they didn't really do it right.
Mm-mm.
I think one, we had barely seen Nikki and Paolo. If they had been kind of more established, not established characters, but if we had seen them and been used to them more, that would have made sense.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because later on as the episode goes, we do see little moments like, oh yeah, when Paolo was flushing the toilet in the viewing station, like, oh, he was getting diamonds.
Mm-hmm.
You know, little things like that. When he was being a dick and telling Nikki, why do you want to go do that? Oh, it's because he doesn't want her to find the diamonds.
Mm-hmm.
So little things like that, which added up. I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. Also, we got to see a buttload of dead characters come back.
Yep.
Now, Dr. Arts, who I love so
Mm-hmm.
much. We saw Ethan. We saw Boone and Shannon. I'm like, there was so much potential for this. I don't know where it went wrong, Sam.
Yeah, I don't know either. And see, that's kind of the thing too. Like, I thought it was interesting. I guess you're right. Like in that first half, where it's like they're essentially doing that, you know, Tag and Binks are dead thing, where it's like these are these two characters inserted within the canon of Lost as we know right now. And I thought that was interesting, but it all just felt kind of cheap, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, there's the moment where Jack's giving that speech, you know, like if we don't live together, we'll die alone.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't know. And like seeing like Nikki and Paolo's reaction to that, it's just kind of like, I don't know. I don't care. I'd rather have Dr.
Right.
Arts's like reaction to that than theirs. And and yeah, I don't know. It was just like, you want to talk about a waste, like talk about wasting Shannon and Boone. Did they literally just come back to film their
That
little
scene.
tiff in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
airport? I'm like, are you kidding me? That sucks. That must
Yeah.
suck as an actor to just be like, hey, you're gonna come back. You're like, we got a little thing that you need to film, just like an hour. Like, okay, cool. And it's literally just that, and it doesn't mean anything. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're right. I think this could have been something that would have been really cool, but I feel like it would have been better, yes, if they had been established more. But I don't know, maybe if this was just later, like it kind of feels too soon. And maybe that's just the way that it was Lost, because yeah, they've only been on this island 74 days, but this is like year 3 of this TV show. And so
Right.
it feels longer. And I don't know, it feels weird to sort of just like squish all of essentially like 2.5 years into this
Mm-hmm.
1 hour of television.
Right.
You know, I
Yeah.
don't know. It
And
just felt kind of weird.
also like it worked in season 2 because the show was still fairly new.
Mm-hmm.
It worked with like having the tail section survivors, seeing their story, but there wasn't a lot of crossover. They were
Mm-hmm.
doing their own adventures. Um, but this time, like, I think there's two things. One, we're already in the second half of this season.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of very important, heavy stuff going on in the story and with the lore, and then we kind of took a break for this.
Yeah.
Nothing in this really changes anything. We didn't really get any new info about the island or anything. It was just new info about Nikki and Paolo.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, But it so I think it felt a little, it was too close to the end of the season or to the halfway point. But at the same time, it's been too far into the whole series to really do something like this.
Yeah.
I mean, we keep going back to it. The solution was what we said. You hire a bunch of extras, you contract them for X amount of years, and you say, hey, eventually you're going to get screen time. You're going to get a character. If Nikki and Paolo had been characters who had been there from the beginning as extras, and they slowly started getting more lines and stuff, one, that's an actor's dream. Two, they're extras. So you have to pay extras anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So just have your hired extras and then slowly, bump them up, both pay and screen wise.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and you probably still could have paid them a fraction of what you paid these two guest stars.
Yeah,
Because they
probably.
were with you from the beginning. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just like they could have done it right, but they didn't.
Yeah.
And Carlton Cuse and Damon Lindelof were really like, just like, wow, we don't know why people didn't like this episode. They were forced to kill off Nikki and Paolo because there was such a strong negative reaction to them.
Really?
Yeah, when they first introduced them, and they've barely been in the show, but that's why like the writers essentially they're like, okay, they gotta go. So I think that's
Interesting.
also why this episode was very meta,
Mm.
and then even Nikki has the line, she's like, look, I'm just a guest star. You know what happens to us? We're not around for long or something like that. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I also knew this was gonna be terrible when the guy, we later find out she's dating him, this old producer guy, he's like, we can bring you back next season. And she's like, how? I got shot. I don't know. You were wearing a bulletproof vest. And she opens her robe and she's in her stripper outfit. And he's like, bulletproof breasts.
Oh God.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
who's writing this? Me?
Yeah.
Like, this is terrible. Bulletproof breasts.
Please don't make that the title of this episode.
It might be, unless we come up with something better.
No.
Yeah, man. Like, so I don't. It was a cool concept. I just think it was done poorly. Also, I just feel like there was a lot of bad dialogue.
Oh yeah.
Like between, like everything was fine, but the Nikki and Paolo stuff, like the dialogue was really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And like I don't, and like I was saying, I like the first half because like that was all. The first half is essentially like their backstory,
Mm-hmm.
and then the second half was like once they're already on the island and they're trying to race to like they're both trying to find the diamonds, you
Mm-hmm.
know, uh, because like at some point, like I feel like the quality just dropped in writing. I was like, what's going on? And the acting, and like I don't know if they were like, I feel like this episode had already been written and they had to rewrite it to kill
Yeah.
off the characters.
Yeah.
Because yeah, because they weren't always supposed to be killed off. They're supposed to have a bigger story. I still think it would have been the same story. It just would have been more drawn out.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of which, the behind the scenes thing I was going to tell you about was that originally it was supposed to be drawn out. Nikki was going to get her own story, her own flashbacks. And it wouldn't be until the very end that you realized she's on a fucking TV show. Yeah.
Oh,
So her
that's
flashbacks would
interesting.
have been expose. And
Hmm.
then the twist at the end was that, oh, it's all a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, it could be done right, but just a little bit we saw today, I don't think they would have done it right. It would have been like this, like, wait a minute, we saw this character go through all this stuff. You're telling me
Mm-hmm.
there were people filming that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Paulo would have eventually had his own episode later down the line.
Mm.
See, I feel like that's a much better way to do it, to tell the story. We just never got that opportunity.
Yeah, we never did. And I don't know. I guess like they weren't that likable to begin with,
Yeah, they
you know?
weren't.
So it's like I don't know if they had still done that, like let's say in in the hypothetical version where this did happen. I don't know how well that episode would have gone off anyway, because Nikki and Paolo haven't really been likable in the few episodes that we've seen them in.
Mm-hmm. See,
They're kind of just there.
and I'm like, we
So
already have two criminals on this island. We have a con man and Kate, who was a murderer.
yeah, yeah,
So I really feel like Nikki and Paolo were like evil amateur Kate and Sawyer.
yeah.
So that could have been cool, and it would have been really interesting to have actual murderers among them, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, it's one of our own.
Mm-hmm.
We thought it was, there we were living amongst a killer. We still are, but we thought someone was out to get us. Like, oh, it's Kate.
Yeah,
We'll forgive her in an episode or two.
yeah.
So yeah, that would have been interesting, but like, it's just they didn't do it right, and it just felt like another criminal, another con. I mean, like, I don't know. It just felt.
It
I don't get it.
lazy. It's just lazy.
Yeah,
That's kind of what this. Yeah,
yeah.
that's the through line for the whole thing.
For
You
the whole
know.
episode and the whole their storyline, like Nikki and Paul, like who the hell created these characters and
Yeah,
why? If you're going to introduce new cast, why these two? Why did y'all decide on this?
yeah. Yeah, because it's like, you could have, like, this would have been interesting if, because I fully didn't even clock that until you just said it. It's like these two are amateur Sawyer and Kate. So
Mm-hmm.
how cool would that have been? Like we kind of already we have like several foils for Jack at this point. We have Locke and we have Ben.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, that would be cool if we had like a foil to these other two characters who like, yeah, like fine. Saeed's always going to question everything that anybody
Mm-hmm.
says, unless he sees it with his own eyes, all that stuff. But like this would have been really cool to have foils who aren't very good at what they do, but then sort of just like that would have been able to sort of like reverberate back to Kate and Sawyer to be like, oh, hey, like maybe I am being like too high and mighty because these people are
Yeah,
doing whatever,
but yeah, exactly, and especially because like even though we keep saying Nikki and Paolo aren't as good, they aren't. They're amateurs, but they're killers. You
Mm-hmm.
know, both Kate and Sawyer, their worst crimes were crimes of passion,
Mm-hmm.
and they made bad choices, and we've seen them deal with the consequences and regret it and grow just in the short time we've had them on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Nikki and Paolo, it's still fresh. They didn't care. It was all out for greed.
Mm-hmm.
So like, no, yeah, they are the evil Kate and Sawyer. So like that would have been a really interesting dynamic, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Also, because Kate and Sawyer aren't really a couple, but they kind of are.
I mean,
I
yeah.
I just think I wanted to shoot out. That's all I want. I wanted to shoot out.
On the
So
islands? That's what I've been saying this whole time.
yes.
Yes.
Little do they know, this island shoots back. I don't know. I thought it was cool what Locke was telling Paolo about uh everyone's entitled to their secrets. Just know nothing stays buried on this island.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, because the beach is eroding. He takes a good dramatic pause. It's like, winter's coming. The beach is going to start eroding. You should bury it, further inland. Like, that was nice.
Yeah.
But, okay, so one thing I did like about this episode is, like, everyone was back.
Yeah.
Everyone had been split this whole season, but everyone was back. Even though, like, I'm pretty sure Matthew Fox didn't shoot anything. That was all old footage.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, like, Kate had new scenes because Nikki and Paolo, she was talking to them. I'm trying to think. There's a few more. Oh, and like Shannon was in that scene too, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so like they came back for a little bit. I think Boone, the guy who played Boone, was only there for like a day or something.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really interesting. I wonder how much this episode cost to make,
That's what I wanted.
because they redid the crash scene. Now, a lot of the crash scene on the beach, or the aftermath of the crash, I should say, a lot of that set was still there.
Mm-hmm.
And they still had the fuselage. And they're like, we knew we were going to use it for something. So we're going to use it for the Nikki and Paolo episode. So
Great.
a lot of that stuff was there, and they used archive footage. But they said their team like had to like go back and watch the first episode like frame by frame to see like what angles could we use, how can we do this. So they rebuilt part of it so they can film new stuff, and then other parts were green screen, which I think it worked because I didn't really notice any green screen in there. But it's like, oh crap,
Yeah.
Nikki and Paolo, they're there in the scene that opened the whole show. I was like, wow, okay, this works. But yeah, other than that, like, I don't know, it could have been good. It could have been fun at the least, but
Yeah.
it really went off track.
Yeah, because like even like the moment where Paolo's back in the other hatch and Ben and Juliet show up. And it's like,
yeah, for no reason.
I'm like, okay, cool. Like, so
They
now
knew
they
about
like,
this hatch. They knew about the others.
yeah, it's like it's all these little things that I'm like, this could have been a really cool episode to sort of be like, hey, like it's not just our core cast of characters who are going off having these adventures and knowing things. It's like it's the background players too. It's it, like, and they have their own stories, they have their own full lives, like, and it could have been really fun. It just wasn't fun. It wasn't written in an interesting way.
And how cool would it have been if there was some kind of big like lore drop or tease of something, and it dies with Nikki and Paolo.
Yeah.
That would have been brilliant.
Like, yeah, probably. I don't like it when we, the audience, knows things, but the characters don't. Because
it depends how you use it.
Yeah, it depends how you use it. So like that could have been really cool, where it's like, oh, it's something so specific that like anybody can find it, but it's just that nobody's found it yet. And so it's like, oh, okay, cool. Like Nikki and Paolo find this thing, and then they get bitten by Medusa spiders, and that's that. And of course now it dies with them. But then like the episode before the finale, somebody else Locke finds the thing, and they're like, oh, this is that. And then we know that it's like, oh, so they can do the cool dramatic moment where he like pulls back the vines, and there's like, I don't know, there's a door in a tree. There you go. Yeah. Or a face in a tree. I don't know.
Yeah. So last episode, this is kind of interesting because you were bringing that up. You don't like having info that the characters don't. Last time we talked about Hitchcock's bomb. I was a little confused because I told a story I'm pulling up the quote right now. So the story is, let's just go back again because I think I forgot an important piece about it.
Mm-hmm.
The story is, Hitchcock says if you have two people at a table talking about baseball for 5 minutes, the scene is about baseball. If you do it again, and 5 seconds before before you see there's a bomb under the table, and then the scene goes on, that scene is no longer about baseball. It's about the bomb. So the scene, they're talking about something else. The scene is about a completely different thing. Hitchcock then says, there is no terror in the bang, only in the anticipation of it. Mm. For me, the cinema is not a slice of life, but a piece of cake. The length of a film should be directly related to the endurance of the human bladder. Okay, we didn't need that last part, but that's what it was. I always assumed it was like, okay, if you tease something's going to happen, it has to happen. I thought if you tease the bomb that was going to go off, you had to show the bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Like it has to happen. But he was saying no, like that's not where the terror is. I was like, oh, so that confused me. So, but going back to that, like I don't know. I think if it's done right, it is cool to have information that the characters don't, because that's what suspense is, That's what. No, you wouldn't have horror movies without that,
Well, okay, yes, but what I mean is like when, like with something, like this hypothetical thing of like Nikki and Paolo find out some interesting lore about the island, and then they die.
Yeah.
Like that, like to me, because then it's like, oh, I, the audience, know that thing is there, but nobody else knows about it. That's mostly what I was getting at. But yes, I will agree that there are ways in which that can be done well, and still be and still be surprised, like, oh, like I knew that, and now they're discovering it, like, cool. So that's mostly what I meant.
Don't trust Kara Thrace. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
Battlestar Razor. They were telling us something we didn't know. Well, I guess Lee was the only one who knew about it, right? Because she was talking to him.
Yeah.
But we didn't really know what she meant. Technically, we never really found out.
I guess that's true.
She was something else. Interesting.
Well, did that message even go out? Because I thought that was that was the thing, that like it gets cut off like right before, or they're out of distance or something.
Oh, that's a good point.
So yeah, I think Shaw's message doesn't get out. It stays there.
I have to rewatch that scene.
Yeah,
it was a good movie, man, dude. That was a highlight of Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, we'll just have to watch Battlestar Razor. Yeah.
Oh god. In 2 years when we finish this podcast. But look, that's really all I had to talk about for this episode. I'm going to be honest, Sam. I don't have any MVPs this week.
I have an MVP.
Who?
It's Sun.
Oh, dude. Let's talk about that, man. Because I completely forgot that happened. But Charlie admits to her that he was the one who like attacked her. And because him and Sawyer were like trying to make everyone feel unsafe by the others and all. It was part of the con to get the guns. Charlie, he's grown a bit by this point. He admitted that to her, and she was pissed. But she went after Sawyer, not Charlie. She went after Sawyer
because it was his idea.
Yeah, it's like, dude. All right, Yunjin Kim.
Yeah. She's great. And I love that whole exchange where he's like, why didn't you tell Jin? He's like, because if I did, we'd be burying one more body. Ooh, yeah. And she still slaps him. I'm like, yeah, take that.
Yeah.
Take that, so you live with that.
I'm glad that's behind us. Now we can focus on non-Nikki and Paolo stuff.
Yes. Yes, me too.
So, yeah.
At least until you hear my prediction, because my prediction is
what's your prediction?
At some point, Nikki and Paolo are going to rise up from the ground as zombies.
Well, oh yeah, zombies. This is Lost. So many dead people have reappeared on the show already.
Hey, and just
Usually
like
in flashbacks, but
yeah,
anything can happen.
and just like Locke said, nothing on this island stays buried.
Yeah,
Mm,
that's interesting.
zombies.
Oh,
That's all
okay.
I'm
Well, we didn't
saying.
talk about the ending. So the whole thing, this is what this episode is like remembered for, is that she finds one of Art's spiders, and
Mhm.
apparently like it bites you and it gives off this pheromone that attracts all the male spiders. But essentially the spider bite paralyzes you, makes it look like you're almost dead. Even a doctor would have trouble finding your heartbeat. So she throws that at Paolo and he starts paralyzing himself. Or not himself, but he gets paralyzed. Well, then while she's looking for the diamonds and all this stuff, we hear maybe the monster?
Yeah,
I
kind
don't
of.
know. He didn't show
Mm-hmm.
up,
Mm-hmm.
but the spiders did, which
Mm-hmm.
was very Stranger Things. I don't know. I thought that was interesting. Maybe the monster sent the spiders, but the
He's like, God,
spiders.
get these two off this island. I
I
hate them.
know, I know. She's like, geez, why'd I have to kill Echo and not these two?
Mm-hmm.
So the spiders get her, and she becomes paralyzed. So essentially, everyone thinks they're dead, and they find the diamonds, realize that they've essentially killed each other over diamonds, and they're buried alive, which is a brilliant, brilliant touch. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if they had just died like that, I'm like, all right, whatever. But the fact that like they earned that death,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
And what really sells it is the fact that like they're throwing the dirt, they're doing all this stuff, and then you get the like classic horror movie like zoom in shot of Nikki's eyes opening up, and then dirt just thrown in
yeah,
her face, and
yeah.
then we see the big pile, and everybody walks away, and that's it. And it's
Mhm.
like,
And they both deserved it, but Nikki was a terrible person. At least
mm-hmm,
Paolo, you could see he was trying. Like he was kind of growing, you know.
mm-hmm,
He was seeing like he did love her, but was he stealing? Like the way it makes it seem is like he wasn't stealing the diamonds. Like he didn't want her to find them, you know.
mm-hmm,
And you kind of get the vibe that like yeah, like he promised her that they would never end up like Shannon and Boone, which they did in the
mm-hmm,
ground together.
mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
and and I will say like seeing it, my first impression was like this just feels very mean spirited. You know, it just feels like wow.
Yeah, it
And
does.
and a part of me is like, I don't know if they necessarily deserved that, but at the same time, in text, they are murderers. And out of text, with me watching it, they put me through that whole hour. So you know what? It's justified.
Yeah.
They deserve
And they
that.
should listen to the dog. Vincent knew. While the bodies were carrying up, Vincent took the blanket.
Mm-hmm.
He was uncovering the bodies because Vincent knows they're alive.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, Vincent's like, damn it. Damn
Mm-hmm.
it. why
Second
am I stuck?
MVP.
Why am I stuck on this island with these people? Yeah, Yunjin Kim and Vincent.
Mm-hmm.
So all right. There's other stuff we can talk about next week. I think because we didn't really talk about Sawyer too much, and there's stuff we can touch on, but maybe we should talk more about Sawyer next week because next week we're talking about season 3, episode 15, Left Behind, in which both Kate and Sawyer must pay the consequences for their most recent actions.
Ooh.
Now, this is something we've both been kind of like waiting for. Well, Sawyer's been very recent, you know, just what happened this episode.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been talking about Kate for a while, how like she's very hot-headed and she almost got them killed, maybe even Jack killed by going on this reckless rescue mission.
Mm-hmm.
And last we saw them, they were still captive. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, payback's a bitch.
Mm-hmm.
I can say that because I already cussed this episode, so it's gonna get explicit rating anyway.
Wow.
So guys, hit us up. Hashtag Lost Legacies. I want to know what your thoughts on Nikki and Paolo are. Let us know. Just throw them at us. As always, You can find me at Twitter at _ Matt Jimenez and on Instagram at Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch.
And you can find me in Hollywood because I am about to pitch ABC the hottest new CSI. It's going to be CSI Island. Oh, check it out. Coming to you Wednesdays at 9 p.m.
Speaking of pitching this to Hollywood, how, like, one, it was so cheesy, the little bit of expose we saw.
Oh, yeah.
And then Hurley's talking about it. Oh, it's just the best show ever. It's like Baywatch, but better. I'm like, this is 2007. What? What? Come on.
Two strippers work for like a secret organization and they're fighting crime.
Yeah. Like in the 90s, 80s, that would have been cool.
Yeah.
But now I'm just like, we're past this, guys. We should be talking about shows that have flashbacks.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Feels like somebody's like failed pitch that they just like, hey, can we like work this into to the script? Yeah, like maybe somebody will be interested. I don't know. Like, yeah. Whatever. Well, anyway, as always, you can also find me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Reel. That's REEL, Texas Weirdo. And don't forget, you've only got a couple more hours to donate to my Kickstarter. So donate and share to get Quetzalcoatl out there. We're almost there. We're so close. We're so close. I can taste it. And maybe, who knows, realistically and not jokingly, could be in Hollywood in a few years. So
who knows?
Yeah.
All right. Until next time, guys, get lost.
Get lost.